What was really going on during this scene in Revenge of the Sith? We'll discuss all that and more in today's Star Wars video. Hey guys, this is Justin. Welcome to another video. We've got a fun one today. As some of you know, a couple weeks ago, we restarted the Eckhart's Ladder Patron. I put a call out for Ask Eck patron questions and, well, we got a couple. So, as always, you can leave your questions for me to answer in the comments, but if you want a much better shot, in this case guaranteed, you can join the Patreon. We've got very, very low monthly membership options. If not, I understand the comments are still there. Alright, first of all, we have Matrix, who says, do you think Palpatine had a hand in Dooku being defeated by Anakin in Episode 3. Dooku had faced both Annie and Obi-Wan several times before and had been able to defeat or escape from them. And Matrix at the end is on the right path. Yes, the Revenge of the Sith novelization goes in depth into the battle between Dooku and Anakin. Perhaps too in depth, really. There's a ton of dialogue. We get Dooku's entire backstory, which back then was a little different than what it is now. But we also learn a ton about what Dooku thought was going to happen at the end of the Clone Wars into the first years of the Empire. First of all, Dooku very clearly understands his place in the universe. Palpatine is significantly more powerful than Dooku could ever hope to be, so he accepts a role which he believes beneath him. The plan is for Dooku to engage Obi-Wan and Anakin aboard the Invisible Hand, to kill Obi-Wan, then allow Anakin to take him into custody. Soon after the war would end, Palpatine would usher in the New Order, and Dooku would help pin the atrocities of the Clone Wars on General Grievous, and would then released help Palpatine usher in a new age of darkness with a Sith Empire basically policing the galaxy. Dooku accepted the role, although he didn't agree with it. He thought it'd be better to kill Anakin because of his instability and potential power and try to turn Kenobi, but Palpatine, of course, disagreed. I do enjoy the dynamic between Dooku and Palpatine early on in the book. Dooku could not argue. Not only had the Dark Lord introduced Dooku to realms of power beyond his most spectacular fantasies, Sidious was also a political manipulator so subtle that his abilities might be considered to dwarf even the power of the dark side itself. Improving upon his master's plan was near impossible. His own idea, substituting Kenobi for Skywalker, he had to admit, was only the product of a certain misplaced sentimentality. Early in the duel, Dooku has absolutely no problem with Obi-Wan and Anakin. In fact, he's disappointed that they haven't seemed to change their style since the Battle of Geonosis. However, he's taken by surprise as the initial attack by the two is a feint, and he's nearly overwhelmed by an onslaught, which is why he has to call on those super battle droids to help him. It's during that distraction where he's able to incapacitate Obi-Wan, and he gets in the one-on-one fight with Anakin. So how does Palpatine play into this? Well, for one, he set Dooku up for the confrontation and also to eventually lose to Anakin. But near the end of the duel, Palpatine is also the one factor which pushes Anakin over the edge. Anakin is clearly afraid of his own emotions. Dooku says his fury is banked behind walls of will, walls hardened by some uncontrollable dread, but Sidious from the sidelines, basically through encouragement, allows Anakin to use his fear to power his anger and his rage, also at the last moment saying, "Strike him, kill him," which obviously surprises Dooku greatly. Dooku always planned to lose the battle. He didn't plan to lose his head alongside it. Anakin, I believe, would have beaten him either way, but I don't think he would have killed him. So yeah, certainly Palpatine played a massive role in how things actually played out aboard the Invisible Hand. Between Geonosis and Episode 3, Dooku had probably improved due to his training with Palpatine. However, Anakin and Obi-Wan improved much, much more, which is why they're able to pretty early on in the battle get the upper hand. It's only the battle droids which help make things even for a while, but even then, Anakin is able to win by himself. Alright, the next question comes from Ski W, who says, "Hey Ek, I've seen plenty of different lore explanations for different lightsaber colors, but has there ever been any lore around the colors of blaster/laser bolts? Why some are red, some green, some blue, etc. Are these tied to the types of weapons such as ion versus regular, or the size such as with blasters versus lasers versus turbo lasers? Has there been any lore around this at all?" Well, I find this kind of funny because as a kid, I always thought it was a bit weird that the bad guys had green lasers and the good guys had red, just because I guess it was the obvious of the lightsaber colors for Luke and Vader. But the answer is actually really simple. You can go right to Star Wars, The New Essential Guide to Weapons and Technology, and I'll just read straight from the passage. Blaster technology is relatively easy to grasp, which has allowed the weapon to spread across the galaxy. A blaster relies on two components, a gas chamber and a power pack. The gas chamber can be filled with any number of energy-rich gases, including Tabana gas from Bespin. When the weapon is fired, a small amount of blaster gas moves through a conversion enabler, often called the exciter, where energy from the power pack excites the gas. The volatile gas then moves through the actuating module, which converts it to a particle beam. The beam moves through a prismatic crystal or some other focusing device before emerging from the barrel as a bolt of glowing energy. Blaster bolts can appear in many different colors, dictated by the type of gas and crystal focusing device, although red and green bolts are most common. All blaster bolts produce a smell similar to ozone. So really, it's what makes up the blaster which defines its color. Some have also said that you can tell the quality of the blaster and the power of the bolt by the actual color, which I guess makes sense. Certain gases would be more expensive and would probably, I guess, produce more energy, but I don't think that's generally played out in the media. I kind of just see it as, oh, the Mandalorians have yellow blasters because they get all of their ammunition and all of their blasters from the same place. When it comes to capital ship grade weaponry, it would have been the same thing. Turbo lasers are basically like very large blasters. They operate on similar principles with focusing devices and gas. They're all really based on the same blaster technology. I will note though, not every handheld weapon in Star Wars or every ship-based weapon is based on this principle. Ion weapons seem to be a little bit different. They fire ion energy, which is usually white, then blue when it impacts a target. As another example, a bowcaster, also not a traditional blaster, rather it fires basically a quarrel surrounded by energy at extremely high speeds. So it's actually more of like a traditional projectile weapon. If you've played any of the Dark Forces or Jedi Knight games, there are also plenty of examples there of non-blaster weapons, whether the flechette launcher or the disruptor rifle. All are kind of their own thing. Then you have even more exotic weapons like the sonic blasters of the Geonosians, which again, very clearly not blaster technology. So the same rules about color don't apply. Rather, they're different colors simply because the energy or the projectile is produced or fired in a completely different way. All right, quick question to end this. It comes from Himanshu 2090. He mentions that Sith can become sort of like Force ghosts by essentially binding their souls to objects or places. We see that with Exar Kun and others, and he's correct. Why don't the Jedi do it? Well, because it's against Jedi philosophy. Jedi are not meant to try to hold themselves to the material world. Returning to the Force is not something that they're meant to fight against, and trying to anchor themselves to the real world is probably seen as selfish, which is why when Jedi return as ghosts, it's usually to provide mentorship or help to others, usually also to act sort of in line with what the Force quote-unquote wants. So yeah, Jedi could become Force ghosts, but I think in doing so, they would probably no longer be Jedi because it would take selfishness and usually also a sacrifice of some sort to do so. Like Exar Kun, when he tried to separate his soul from his body, had to like sacrifice all of the Massasis, the ones who built those temples on Yavin 4. But that's all I've got. Again, if you want to get your question in, leave it in the comments. But if you want a better chance, consider joining the Patreon. And also just a reminder, we've got some new merch. It's available at eckhartsladder.com. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.